Now, it's wonderful to see so many of you here today while this virtual world continues. My name is Rachel Brooks. I'm a presenter and journalist for Sky Sports, and I'm thrilled to be your host today. Life as we know it changed some 6 months ago, and with it brought some new challenges. So this webinar is all about not just being cyber fit in terms of protecting data from cyber attacks, but it's also about the importance of being physically and mentally fit and ready for the new cyber reality. There are many elements to this, and we're going to cover them all off for you today. Being cyber fit used to mean just making sure that your online presence, your online community was safe and secure, but it now means so much more. We no longer just carry out internet searches or send emails. For many of us, our whole working life has had to adapt to being online. And so being cyber fit means more than just your online security now. Being cyber fit at Acronis means more than just protecting your data. These are unprecedented times, and we face more challenges today and in the future than ever before. We've all had to come to terms with a different way of working and to deal with the uncertainty of things to come. This has led to challenges for our physical and mental well-being, more than we've ever known, and as we prepare now for an unknown future. So this webinar hopes to delve into not only the cyber challenges we face, but also the physical and mental health challenges that confront us. We will discuss how Acronis can help you, our partners and friends, during this period of change. But firstly, some housekeeping notes. This conference is being recorded, and we will email you a link so that you can share it with your friends and colleagues who could not attend. Your microphone will be muted throughout the event, so please make sure you submit your questions to us through the Zoom Q&A interface. We've got a terrific lineup of speakers for you today. We will start with Gaidar Magdanurov, the Chief Cyber Officer and Chief Operating Officer at Acronis. Next up is James Hewitt, who is a performance scientist at Hintsa. And last but not least, it is Aurélie Lamy, the founder of CAREFORMANCE Group and consultant Cerebral trainer to ROKiT Venturi Racing. Before we get to our agenda, there is one quick disclaimer I need to give to you, and all the information in this presentation is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute the providing of mental health advice and is not intended to be a substitute for independent professional psychological or psychiatric advice, diagnosis or treatment. Right, now here's today's agenda. As I mentioned, Gaidar will be discussing what Acronis is doing to adapt to the pandemic. We will then hear from James. He's going to tell us how to transform challenge and disruption into an opportunity for growth. And our final speaker, Aurélie, will talk us through how to improve your well-being and performance by training your brain. Time for our first panelist today, and I'm very pleased to welcome Acronis Chief Cyber Officer and Chief Operating Officer. Gaidar assists the CEO with developing and executing company strategy. Gaidar and his team are responsible for Acronis's leadership position on the cyber protection markets. Welcome, and over to you, Gaidar.
Hello, and thank you for joining. We all understand that it's very important to stay fit in the real life and stay fit in the digital world, especially now during those unprecedented times we live in. The world is changing so rapidly, so dramatically, so we have to adjust and we have to stay fit. And we're talking now about cyber fit, being fit in the real world and in the digital world. So let's start from the cyber part. And let me begin from the introduction of Acronis and why we're talking about cyber protection. Acronis is a global leader in cyber protection. We started back in Singapore in 2003, and we started with data protection. And then over time, we realized that it's important to provide the complete cyber protection, integrated protection for all data applications and systems. And since then, we grew to become a Swiss Singaporean global company with local presence in almost every country in the world. And what we do is we're protecting the data application and systems. Why it is important to protect digital world? I think it's an easy thing to understand. Everything now depends on digital. Everything around us is controlled by computers, by systems, by applications, and almost impossible without data. But protecting digital world is becoming more and more difficult because the complexity of IT infrastructure is growing. So we have more devices, more data sources, and all of it spread out. Now with COVID-19, almost everybody has to start working from home. It means that instead of working from one central location from corporate network, we're now working from all our houses, from our home networks, and our devices are scattered around the world. That drives complexity, and that makes protection more complicated. The cost is growing because we have more data, more devices, and to protect all that data requires additional storage space, and are becoming more and more costly. And of course, security becoming more and more of a concern because cyber criminals have access to all the same tools that we use. They have artificial intelligence, they have cloud platforms, they have enormous computing powers that they use to exploit zero-day exploits. They provide different services to other criminals, they create ransomware, and they leverage the complexity and they leverage the absence of protection because of high cost. Privacy becoming a concern because there is so much data that can be used to help us, but also the data can be used against us. Data can be used to direct our decisions. Data can be used to steal our secrets. So the privacy is becoming more and more important. And overall, everything now depends on application systems and data. Everything now depends on the digital world. So we cannot go on without digital world. So protecting the digital world is super important. But how do we solve all those issues of complexity, cost, security, and privacy? The solution that we propose is cyber protection. And to explain cyber protection, we use the model of 5 vectors of SAPAS. Safety means that you have a copy, nothing is lost, you can always recover your data. Accessibility, you can access your data, you can access your systems from where you need it and when you need it. Privacy, you have control over who has access to your data and what they can do with that. Authenticity, you have a way to prove that your data is the original copy. In the digital world, it's very easy to create copies and modify them, but even slight modification can lead to dramatic results. So we need a way to prove and guarantee that you have the original copy. And of course, security. We need protection against bad actors. And combining all of those 5 vectors, balancing those 5 vectors, we can provide the cyber protection that will save digital world for us. And another way to explain what we do as cyber protection, especially relevant now, would be to compare the biological threats and cyber threats. So let's think about it. What do we do to protect against biological threats? So first of all, we're trying to prevent them. We invent vaccines, we lead healthy lifestyles, we maintain hygiene. Then we do detection. We do screening, we try to figure out the symptoms, we try to figure out tests that will allow us to understand what kind of biological threats may hit us. Then we develop response systems. We have our own bodies that have immune systems, we have antiviral drugs, we have healthcare system that help us to respond to those threats. Then of course we have recovery, we have our systems within the body, we have different medicines that allows us to recover from those biological threats. And then we do forensics. We investigate what it was, what kind of issue was that, what kind of a pathogen was infecting our bodies. And in the digital world, we do something very similar. From the prevention perspective, we make sure that we have all the recent updates installed, so we have fewer vulnerabilities that are unpatched. We make sure that we assess the vulnerability of the system and we apply the settings that allow us to protect the system. From detection perspective, we use artificial intelligence to detect threats. And what is good actually in the digital world, that with AI and digital systems, we can have enormous amount of test environments, which we cannot afford in real world situation with human beings. Then for response, we have different tools to block malware execution, remove it from backups, remove it from production systems. For recovery, we have our backup and recovery, we have disaster recovery, and we have various tools that allow us to get to business quickly. And then for forensics, we can collect metadata, store the metadata, and then investigate what happened. So knowing what happened, knowing how the attack was happening on our systems, we can figure out the solutions that will allow us to protect against future similar attacks. And also we will have a log, an audit log of whatever happened to our systems and data, which can be also very important. So this is what we do. We deliver cyber protection in the same framework that we deliver biological protection. And Acronis partners are the doctors. Those are the people who deliver the cyber protection to our customers. And if we think about the whole portfolio of what we provide, it's easy to explain in just 5 blocks. We have our major product, Acronis Cyber Protect, that combines all the tools, all the technologies we developed and provide the complete cyber protection, all 5 vectors of SAPAs in a balanced way. Then to deliver Cyber Protect and other products that we have, we use Acronis Cyber Cloud that is used by partners, our service providers, that use this cloud platform to deliver the services to the end customers. Then for developers, we have Cyber Platform that allows them to create extensions so they can support different types of workloads, they can support different types of storage services, and they can expand the cyber protection to new applications, new systems, new types of data. Then to host and maintain it, we have cyber infrastructure and systems. Our cyber infrastructure allows us to quickly launch data centers, especially local data centers in all the countries where we have presence. And those data centers we can launch for Acronis and for our partners. Then on top of that, we provide cyber services. Various services that allow us to train and educate our partners and customers and provide support in developing and deploying the systems that they have. So this is what we provide. And then let's talk about Cyber Protect, because this is one of the most incredible products we ever released. And this is the complete cyber protection product. So why is it Cyber Protect so great and so important? So first of all, because we integrate data protection, backup, and cybersecurity with various tools, we are able to provide a superior backup. It's not only the static or reactive protection when you copy data and then you can recover from that data, but it's an active and proactive protection. So vulnerability assessment, patch management allow you to patch the system and avoid downtime. Active protection protects against malware attacking your data, your system, your backup application, so it actively protects against attacks. And of course we have the reactive protection when we can recover from the data that were stored. And all of it designed in a way that it boosts the productivity of an IT professional. So if it's an MSP supporting infrastructure of a customer, they can support multiple customers with fewer people. And if it's a corporate IT organization that is supporting the large corporation, they can scale and they can support the growth of the company with fewer people needed to maintain the cyber protection tasks. Besides that, it is superior backup. It also provides automation and integration. As we were talking about it before, that complexity and cost, they are driving the difficulty of protecting the digital world. And one way to remove the complexity and decrease the cost is to integrate with tools that allow automation and integrate with those tools that are already used by service providers and corporate IT. So we integrate with security tools, we integrate with remote management tools, and we integrate with professional services automation tools. So we helping our service providers, our partners, to use the Cyber Protect as part of the overall security or products stack that they have and they deliver to their customers. If we think about the security, then security from the integrated solution is also better than the security from the non-integrated solution. We have the same level of protection against malware, ransomware. We have all the basic components of the traditional endpoint security. But on top of that, we provide additional capabilities and services to enhance the endpoint security. So besides that, you're getting the superior backup, you have integration with your systems and platforms, you're also getting a superior security. And then what's also important is that integration between backup and cybersecurity allows us to deliver unique capabilities. So first of all, our security is able to protect third-party applications. So as you know, when COVID-19 started and everybody started to use the remote work applications, and especially video conferencing applications, there are multiple attacks on applications like Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams. So what we do and what we're able to do, because we run as a system application, we can protect those user-level applications against those attacks. So we have a deeper access into the system, and we have deeper understanding on what's going on in the system, and that way we can protect those applications. And at the same time, CyberProtect integrates with other security tools that you may be running, which is important. It's not replacing, it can enhance your security. And then we have other capabilities. So of course we have the ability to detect and prevent the security threats, but integration with backup allows us to do some incredible things. So we don't have to scan the active system, we can scan the backup copy. And in backup copy, we can find something that was impossible to find on active system, or we can avoid decreasing the performance of the active system because we're working on the backup copy. We're not touching the primary data or primary system. And then, of course, we are able to do some unique capabilities because we integrate multiple technologies. So let's say if your system were hit by a cyber threat, let's say it was a ransomware that used a 0-day vulnerability in your system to infect your system and bring it down. And let's say the vendor of the system issued a patch. But with a traditional backup solution, you always have the same problem. Your system is down, you recover from backup, but you recover the older version that already have the vulnerability. So that version can be attacked again and the system will go down again. What we're able to do is we're able to do the fail-safe patch management, where we can actually patch the system when we restore it. So you will have the system that already have the recent updates, so it will not be brought down by the infection. But it works in the other way. If you install a patch that is not working on your system and takes it down, you can actually roll back because you have backup copy. So at the end of the day, you're reducing your downtime. So integration between cybersecurity, data protection, and various additional capabilities provide unique capabilities that are not possible without integration. Then I would like to address one important thing. So we all understand that COVID-19 is here, and a lot of companies, including our customers and partners, are experiencing difficulties with cash flow. And one way to help them is by introducing new additions and new pricing that would allow to get the most cost-efficient cyber protection with CyberProtect. So one way to do it is we designed a special edition, Essentials Edition, that includes almost all of the cyber protection capabilities, all of the security capabilities, and some limited essential backup capability that can be used to protect workstations and endpoint devices. For hosting providers that are providing web hosting and email hosting services, we provide a hosting server edition that allows them to protect multiple customers, multiple tenants on one server. And we package those editions with certain amount of cloud storage. So it's already included and you can use cloud backup. And then you pay only for the averages on top of that. And we optimize the prices to make it really cost efficient to all our partners. And even more, understanding that situation with COVID probably is not going away so soon as we would like it to go away, we are introducing a promotion. So as soon as we launch our Essential Edition, we provide a 33% discount on top of it to make it completely no-brainer for everybody to deploy this protection. And I will not stop on it for long, and we'll distribute the slide so you can look at the table comparing the different editions. One point I just wanted to make here is that Essentials provide most of the security capabilities, most of the protection capabilities, and limited backup capabilities. But it should be possible to use Essentials editions for majority of the endpoints used by our customers and service providers. Another thing I would like to mention is the services that are available from Acronis. So of course we have a set of cyber protection services where we can help to deploy cyber protection, we can help to train the partners and customers on the security practices, and we can help with incident response. We have our Cyber Protection Operations Center that helps us to detect new type of threats and notify our customers and partners about those situations that are happening in real time. And we always maintain the expertise in security because we're constantly monitoring and analyzing what's going on in the security space. Besides that, we provide various professional services. We help ISVs to develop applications for cyber protection, and we provide consulting on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Our CyberFit Academy provides training and certification and consulting for our partners and customers on how to deploy and use cyber protection. And one new thing we're building now is we are relaunching our partner program. And instead of traditional partner program where just companies participate, we are building a Acronis cyber community where partners will participate as customers and as individuals. And for individuals, we're building our club that will have different levels of membership. And for our premium members, we would have some very unique offering on communicating with executives, attending exclusive events, and using our facilities that we have around the world. Then let's talk about what we did and what we recommend to do to stay fit during the COVID-19 time, and what to do with your office and workspace. We at Acronis took it very seriously from the very beginning. Almost from the very beginning of the COVID-19 situation unfolding, we had an executive committee meeting twice a day for multiple months, analyzing what's going on, reviewing all the news, reviewing all of the information available to understand what's the best course of action. So we early switched to the remote work, and luckily it was easy for us because we're a global distributed organization, and it was easy for our partners because majority of the business is possible to conduct remotely. But now we're all getting back to business. So what we're doing? So first of all is, of course, maintaining office hygiene. So cleaning the offices, providing all the protection equipment to our employees, customers, and visitors. Of course, we have to solve some problems like feeding people that are working in the office and assisting them in commuting to the office. So what's important here is to realize that some public areas may be closed. Some restaurants may not be delivering food. There may be no cafeteria in the area available anymore. So it's important to find partners that will be able to deliver food to the office for those people who are working there. And also it's important to figure out how people can commute to the office. In some places, you can recommend different routes, or in some places you can organize buses to pick up employees and ensure that in the buses you are maintaining all the requirements and regulations. Of course, travels and events became very complicated, so we went virtual almost everywhere. And later you will hear that our global summit that we host in Miami will be completely virtual this year. We'll make sure that it's completely stunning experience for everybody who will join, but thinking about the health and safety of our customers and partners, we decided that we are not going to do the physical event this year. Then what's also important, and we were paying a specific attention to that, is helping employees and partners and customers to set up the home offices. So we built a set of recommendations that we deployed to all our employees, and we're sharing with our partners on how to set up the home office, what software and hardware to use. What is especially important is to have very good quality video conferencing software and hardware, because now everything's virtual and you want to be as close as possible to your customers and partners. And to do that, you need a good quality of picture so people can see you and interact with you. And one last thing that's also important is looking and reviewing all of the information that is available, looking at partners that can deliver tests, looking at partners in healthcare that can help for people who are getting sick and people eventually getting sick. So assisting employees, assisting partners, assisting customers, that was important for us and we recommended to everybody. So you have to stay on top of the situation, collecting the information about what's going on and understanding what will be your next step. Where are you going to get tests if you need the test? Where are you going to get healthcare if you need the healthcare? So that is a way to stay safe and productive. And we have some set of very specific recommendations. So first of all, we think that for a business to be able to take care of its employees, partners, and customers, business should be productive. The business should be making money. And one way to do it is to deliver the solution that is very important now, especially now. It will be always important, of course. And in this case, it's Cyber Protect, because it provides complete cyber protection. And with all the promotions, all the pricing that we have, it actually allows our partners to save, allows our customers to save, and get higher efficiency from protection. So we recommend everybody to focus on business. Make sure you have resources, because if you have resources, you can help your employees, customers, and partners. Then, of course, maintain hygiene and comply with regulations and proposals from local authorities. That's very important. It's always important. It was always important when you had flu and other types of viruses flying around us, but now it's especially important with COVID situation. It's important to take care of your health. It's important to exercise and control what you eat, take vitamins, practice healthy work habits, so you will stay productive, you will stay healthy, and you will be able to help people around you. And despite that situation is getting better, it's always important to think ahead. So what will happen if your country or if your state will introduce isolation requirements, or what if you get sick, or somebody in your house will get sick and you will have to stay in the house? Just to get this peace of mind that nothing critical will happen, we recommend that everybody will have enough supplies, medical supplies and food supplies that will allow you to go on. That way you don't have to think that something terrible will happen if you will have to stay at home. And of course you have to stay protected, and protected in the digital world. The cyber criminals are using the situation to run new ransomware attacks, to attack people in their home networks, because home networks is not as secure as corporate networks. They use home networks and devices in your home networks to penetrate the corporate devices and corporate networks. And now we have so many things in our networks that can be hacked. It can be smart TVs, it can be smart fridges, it can be whatever, it can be variable devices, but they have access to your network. And theoretically, those people who want to attack your network can use exploits in those devices. And a lot of those devices, especially IoT devices, may never be patched. There's a new phrase coming up is called forever vulnerability. So you have 0-day vulnerability, and we have evergreen forever day vulnerability, because it will never be patched by the vendor that built that particular IoT device. So it's extremely important to stay protected and have cyber protection deployed, so you will not get into a situation like wonderful people from Garmin did. And we all actually very sad about it, because a lot of our Garmin devices are still not working. And we all understand that anybody can get into that situation. If you don't have cyber protection deployed, you will not be able to get back to business quickly. And then one last thing for my presentation, I would like to talk about the CyberFit initiative that we have. And the CyberFit initiative is our initiative to build awareness of cyber fitness, of the cyber protection, and that you need to be cyber protected. So one thing you can do is you can go to goacronis.com/score and download a simple tool. You don't even have to install it, just run it in your machine. It works on Windows for now, but if you run a Windows machine, download it, launch it, and it will give you a score. This will be an assessment of what's your current level of cyber protection. That score will allow you to understand where you are and what is missing in your system. And that can be used for you, for your customers, for your partners. That way you can actually help people to understand the value of cyber protection and what they need to do to get cyber protected. And those assessments of cyber fit helps customers to deploy the solution that they need, help partners to provide the right solution to the customers. And what we're doing now, we're becoming more and more local from what we do. So we'll look at different countries and assessing the level of cyber fit and level of the customization and localization that we have. So our goal is to be truly global, local cyber protection provider. So we support local applications, we support local partners, we support local data centers, and we do it to provide the highest level of cyber protection. that is needed now everywhere. And to raise overall awareness, we work with lots of sports partners. Quite a few top sports teams in the world are working with Acronis. We help them with cyber protection. We're making sure that the infrastructure works, that they still can run their games, they can run their races. And at the same time, what they do is helping us to build awareness of cyber protection, and that is very important in this world. And so with that, I'll pass the mic back to Rachel, and we'll listen to some wonderful presentations of our CyberFit partners. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for Q&A at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gaidar. That's fascinating. And I think also proof that everybody is working online right now as we get used to this new world, and some great tips and ideas on how we can protect ourselves as well. It is indeed more important than ever to take care of each other, and we need to take care of ourselves first. We're all going to learn during this event how to stay productive and effective and adapt to post-COVID life. For our attendees, here is the agenda as we continue now. Please keep your questions coming in. I can see them coming in already on the Zoom Q&A interface, and we'll put those to our guests for you. It's now my great pleasure, though, to introduce James Hewitt, who is a performance scientist, speaker and author with over 15 years of experience in human high performance. James works with Formula One drivers and teams, advises Fortune 500 C-suite executives, and consults a large range of organisations on matters related to health and high performance. Over to you, James.
Well, thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you, Gaidar, for your presentation. And thank you, audience, for joining this webinar today, whether it's the morning or the afternoon or even evening, wherever you are. As Rachel said, my name is James Hewitt, and over the next 20 minutes, we're going to be exploring this topic: how can you upgrade your brain and work smarter, not harder? You might be wondering what I'm wearing on my head. Well, this is a EEG headset. It's actually monitoring the electrical activity of my brain with 14 sensors. It's communicating via Bluetooth to a laptop that's just out of shot here, and then visualizing on this screen. So if you kind of peer into your screen and have a look at me, you'll see a rotating model of my brain and various different brain waves that are actually being visualized in quite an artistic rather than scientific way, if I'm honest. I'm going to come back to that. Keep an eye on it. Maybe you might find something interesting if you see some flashes as I'm going through this presentation, and I'm going to use it to illustrate a few points. You're probably more interested in your brain, I imagine. I'm going to be sharing some top tips that you can use to upgrade your brain over the next few minutes. I've always been interested in human performance. Actually, my journey into human performance began about almost 20 years ago. I moved to France to pursue my dream of becoming a professional cyclist. Unfortunately, my cycling career didn't quite reach the heights that I hoped. So I returned to the UK, I studied sports science. Eventually, I set up my own coaching business. I worked with some elite and professional endurance athletes, but the majority of my clients were amateurs. They had very demanding jobs in London, where I was based at the time. And outside of that work, they pursued very challenging cycling events. But I observed that whatever was going on in the workday had a massive impact on their physical performance. And this led to me to become intrigued by working life. I started to apply tools and frameworks from my training in sports science to try and understand knowledge work. And that led to much of my work and research today. I'm actually a doctoral researcher at Loughborough University in the UK, as well as consulting with various different clients. But my main interest is really exploring knowledge work. That's work where we think for a living, and factors such as our daily rhythms of sleep, of stress, and cognitive performance in particular. I also continue to work in sport, in endurance sport with cyclists, with skiers. And I've also been privileged to work quite extensively in motorsport with drivers across series from Formula 4, 3, 2, and in Formula 1. Rapidly adapting to changing conditions is crucial for sustainable high performance in both sport and in business. But sometimes we don't feel equipped to adapt in the face of uncertainty. So in today's session, we're going to be exploring two areas that you can use to improve your ability to adapt, not just cope with stress, but perhaps thrive through it. These areas are: how can you regulate your brain and your nervous system, and how can you enhance focus and beat distraction. But before I get into that, I'd like to share a story as a metaphor with you. I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you have a tea candle. You light that tea candle and you place it on a table outside in your garden, but a breeze blows across the table and blows out the flame. So you take that tea candle, you relight it and you place it inside a storm lantern. You close the door. Now the breeze sweeps across the garden, but the flame is protected. Finally, I'd like you to imagine that you set aside that storm lantern and the tea candle, and instead you build a fire pit in your garden. You use kindling and wood, and you light the wood, and the flames start to grow. Now that gentle breeze becomes a wind. It sweeps across the garden and sweeps over the fire pit. But instead of extinguishing the flames, like it did with the tea candle, it actually intensifies the fire. The wind brings oxygen and actually fuels the fire pit. It grows in intensity and strength. Now, the tea candle, the storm lantern, and the fire pit illustrate a principle called anti-fragility. That's a principle that provides an overarching story, a meta-narrative for everything we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. You see, the tea candle is fragile. It hates change. You make it robust when you place it inside the storm lantern, so it can manage change. But really, what we want to do is to become more like the fire pits. We want to become anti-fragile, to grow through change. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. How can we become performers and perhaps build teams that benefit from variability, where randomness, variation, and uncertainty actually improve our performance? Top performers transform uncertainty, even the uncertainty we're experiencing in the world right now, into a competitive advantage. I think it's crucial that we do this because uncertainty is at an all-time high. You know, the Economist went as far as to say that uncertainty is a form of poison. Now, 72% of people, perhaps driven by this uncertainty, struggle with stress in their daily life and say it interferes with what they want to do. But only 40% of the people who say that stress interferes with their life actually let their employer know about it. And only 40% of the people who let their employer know are actually offered any kind of support. Many people often try to cope on their own. 31% of people report consuming more caffeine. I can certainly relate to that. 23% of people report taking over-the-counter medication to try and cope on their own. And about 1 in 5 people report consuming more alcohol. And if I'm honest, that's me too. When people do seek help, most of the common approaches that they're offered involve sending employees to some kind of stress management or relaxation class. Now, relaxation can be unhelpful in the face of uncertainty, but unfortunately, it's not really sufficient. It's like taking that tea candle and relighting it and putting it inside the storm lantern. You might be able to resist the change, but there's no way that you can benefit from it. Similarly, when we drink too much alcohol, it's basically like an insulator. That's like putting that tea candle inside the lantern and relighting it, closing the door, but then closing the vents. It's protected for a while, but eventually it runs out of oxygen and it's extinguished. Whatever the case, often we're not addressing the underlying issues. Stress is not always something that we should try to insulate ourselves from. And that's because there's a difference between feeling stressed and being stressed out. See, stress is completely normal. We experience an alarm, and then hopefully there's a good match between the demands that are made of us and our capabilities to meet those demands. So then we experience a period of recovery. We start to become stressed out when that stress response doesn't switch off, when there's an ongoing mismatch between those demands and our capabilities. And if we're not proactive, we end up in a vicious cycle of increasing fragility, where we become more stressed and progressively less able to deal with the unexpected. Initially, this takes the form of experiencing repeated hits where we just fail to adapt and eventually start to break down. Over time, our stress response doesn't really work anymore. We experience an allostatic overload, and actually many of the disorders that we see in the modern world. But it shouldn't be this way, because we have an incredible capacity to grow in the face of challenge and uncertainty, physiologically, psychologically, and also organizationally. We can achieve a healthy adaptation in response to stress. And that means that that same stressor, which was once a challenge, becomes more manageable. we increase our capacity to absorb stress and adapt in the face of uncertainty. So how do we achieve that? How do we optimize our capacity to adapt? Well, I'm going to start by talking about how we can regulate our brain and our nervous system. I'm going to concentrate on 3 ways that we can do that: moving, sleeping, and breathing. I'd like to do a bit of brain anatomy before we dive into this. Many of you have probably heard of a part of the brain called the amygdala. Now you can see that on the slide, and if you peer into your screen, it's actually deep in the brain, kind of in the middle around here. The amygdala is a very complex brain region. It's sometimes described as the brain's stress or fear center. And so if there are ways that we can influence the activity of that part of the brain, the stress and fear center, in a positive way, it might help us to actually get better at adapting to stress. Now, exercise is associated with all kinds of benefits, but there's evidence to demonstrate that just 20 minutes of exercise, like going for a jog, for example, actually seems to change the activity of that part of the brain, the amygdala, and actually biases that part of the brain towards feelings of happiness and away from fear. The second area I'd like to talk about is sleep. So let's see the results. So most people said that it would be equivalent to no sleep for 24 hours. Well, you must have been doing your homework, because you are correct. If you slept for 6 hours per night for 2 weeks, your cognitive performance would be equivalent to going without sleep for 24 hours. They illustrated this in a study back in 2004, and they restricted people's sleep for 3 different conditions for 2 weeks. An unfortunate group didn't get to sleep at all for an entire night. One group got to sleep for 8 hours per night for 2 weeks. Another group got to sleep for 6 hours per night for 2 weeks. And all the time during their waking hours, they monitored their cognitive performance. So they found that after people slept for 6 hours per night for 2 weeks, they were making as many mistakes, as many errors, as if they'd gone an entire night without sleep, as about 1 in 3 of you who responded to that poll found, which is brilliant. But the researchers went one step further, because in addition to monitoring how many mistakes people made and how impaired they felt, they also monitored how impaired people thought they were. They found that even though people's cognitive performance was as bad as if they went an entire night without sleep, people didn't really notice. They didn't feel much more impaired or sleepy relative to getting 8 hours per night, which is more than sufficient. See, often we're very poor judges of how sleep affects us. So there's a performance component, but there's also a stress component, because we can end up in a vicious cycle, because inadequate sleep actually generates stress. So if we're not careful, we don't sleep enough, which means we sleep less than 7 hours, and that increases the amount of stress that we experience. But then that increased stress can actually interfere with our sleep. So we reduce sleep more, we increase stress, and we go down this negative spiral. Sleep is crucial, as I'm sure you all know. And you can see several tips on this screen, and we're going to share this recording afterwards. I encourage you to delve into them. If I was going to give you just one tip from this list of 10, it would be to try an experiment, particularly during this time when you're working from home, that as many of you I'm sure will be. Try to adopt regular sleep and wake times for a week and see what effect that has. You might be surprised about how much that could improve your sleep. The final exercise in this section around regulating your brain and your nervous system is about breathing exercises. Now, often when we think about breathing exercises, we imagine someone breathing into a brown paper bag, but breathing exercises are actually about much more than calming down. Controlled breathing is actually associated with measurable changes in brain activity. So when we breathe about 6 breaths per minute, so that would be in for a count of 5 seconds, out for a count of 5 seconds, that's associated with changes in the electrical activity of your brain, increased alpha power and decreased theta power. Now, on this brain that you can see on the screen here, you can see the alpha power as a kind of purple color, and you can see the theta power as a kind of blue color. And that increased alpha power and decreased theta power that's associated with that controlled breathing technique is also associated with improvements in feelings of vitality and energy and reductions in anxiety. Now, when we do this controlled breathing, it activates a whole cascade of different functions. And one of those, that's mainly driven by the fact that there's a really powerful connection between our brain and our heart. And what that's driven by something called the vagus nerve. So when we breathe at a controlled rate, or actually when we breathe anytime, the heart senses pressure changes as we breathe in and out with something called aortic baroreceptors. So when we breathe in and out, the heart senses those pressure changes, and that actually influences the activity of that vagus nerve. Now, it seems that when we breathe at a particular frequency, which for most people is between 4.5 and 7 breaths per minute, called a resonant frequency, that actually increases something called heart rate variability. It actually changes the way that our heart beats. And the way that it changes our heartbeat is that it actually increases the difference between each heartbeat. Now, that might sound a bit counterintuitive, but actually a heartbeat, which isn't entirely regular, there's actually high variability between each beat, is associated with a greater ability of our nervous system to adapt. Basically indicates that our nervous system is able to make these very fine, precise adjustments continually to help us to adapt to stress. So when we do controlled breathing, it helps us to adapt to stress. It also seems to be associated with regulating activity in that fight or flight center of the brain, that amygdala that I talked about a moment ago. It also seems to be associated with improvements in memory retrieval and working memory, improved sustained attention, situational awareness, and also something called goal-directed behavior. And these characteristics are all crucial to being able to adapt and perform under pressure, and most importantly, respond healthily in the face of uncertainty. The last section I'm going to talk about is enhancing focus and beating distraction. Because in addition to talking about the amygdala, I want you to also think about the front part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is associated with our executive functions. That includes our ability to pay attention, choose what we focus on and what we ignore, also our working memory, something called cognitive flexibility, crucial with responding to uncertainty. That part of the brain also helps with cost-benefit decisions so that we can pay attention to the right things at the right time. The problem is that this front part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, can get hijacked by stress. It interferes with the function of that part of our brain, impairing cognitive abilities and judgments. This is a problem for many of us, the knowledge workers who likely make up most of the people on this webinar, because we think for a living. Now, in most occupations, 30% of the work could already be automated. But it's really the 70% that will be characterized by our most human capabilities that are most vulnerable to this disruption of the front part of our brain. Because the most valuable of those capabilities that we need to protect includes our ability to deal creatively with ambiguity and uncertainty, which is really fundamental and is really closely linked with the activity of that front part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. See, our attention is like a spotlight. We're never really not paying attention. It's more a question of, are we paying attention to the right things at the right time? And so I'd like to share some tips with you to help you to protect that front part of your brain from stress and disruption, to help you respond in the face of uncertainty. It starts with engineering your environment for focus. I'm going to talk about 3 areas: peaking, Pomodoro, and finally, protection. See, cognitive performance varies by about 20% during the average day. About 20% of us experience as a peak valley rebound. We feel at our best in the morning. You might call yourself an early bird. Another 20% experience this in reverse. You feel at your best in the evening. You might call yourself an owl. Everyone else is somewhere in between. But regardless, those 3 phases of the day have distinct characteristics. The peak is the best time for that focused work. The valley is the best time for recovery. And the rebound is a great opportunity for the switching work and menial tasks that make up most of our day. So my challenge to you is this: try to schedule your most demanding work with the peak in your day, whenever that is. Try and schedule some rest in the middle rather than just trying to push through. And if you can, isolate the switching tasks and the menial work to the rebound in your day, whenever that is. What chronotype do you think you are? Are you more of a morning type, an evening type, or somewhere in between? Could we get that poll up now on the screen, please? Andre, thank you. Interesting. So actually, based on the people who responded, we've got about 33% morning types. Actually, quite a lot of evening types on this call, which is interesting, maybe based on where people are joining from, perhaps. And then about 24% in between. So a bit of a different distribution than we see in the data, but still certainly interesting. So I encourage you to pay attention to that. And then during your peak period, whenever that is, try to use something called the Pomodoro technique. It's basically interval training for your brain. Divide your work into 25-minute blocks of focus, followed by a short break in that peak period of your day, and try to complete 4 of those 25-minute uninterrupted blocks during your peak period. Maybe create a checkbox so you get a sense of achievement when you tick each box off. If you do that, you'd be amazed at what you can achieve. During those 25 minutes where you're really focused, it's crucial that you protect that time, because we're interrupted once every 11 minutes, and it takes 23 minutes to get back onto the original task. And even a 2.8-second interruption, like picking up my phone, for example, to check it, doubles the subsequent error rates after that. So protect each of those 25-minute Pomodoros during the peak period of your day, whenever that is. So during this brief presentation, we've covered regulating your brain and nervous system, enhancing focus, and beating distraction. We talked about how moving, just 20 minutes of exercise, can bias that part of your brain, the amygdala, towards happiness and away from fear. We talked about sleep and how 7 hours of sleep is critical to optimizing performance and minimizing stress. And finally, we talked about breathing and how just a few minutes of breathing at that controlled rate of 6 breaths per minute can enhance performance and your ability to adapt to stress. Finally, we talked about recognizing your peak period. During that peak period, breaking it down into 25-minute blocks of focus. And then perhaps most importantly, being really disciplined about eliminating sources of distraction and interruption when you can. I encourage you at the end of this presentation to write down one idea that's really stuck out to you. And hopefully you can put that into practice, because uncertainty is at an all-time high, and we do need to find ways to respond to that healthily. But we can. Rapidly adapting to change is possible, and it can help us to perform at a high level more sustainably, whether we're in sport or in business. As we close today, I want to recognize the fact that sometimes it's natural that we don't feel equipped to adapt in the face of uncertainty, but try to control what you can, maybe by putting some of these ideas into action, and then accept what you can't control, because there's always going to be some things that are outside of our hands. If you do those things, you really can become anti-fragile, like that fire pit, open to the unexpected and able to benefit from it. And if you do that, maybe take just a few of these ideas and put them into action, what once felt too stressful would now feel manageable. And finally, what once felt impossible may now become within your reach. Well, thank you very much for your attention. And if you've got any questions, we might have a bit of time for that. But I hope you got at least one thing that you can take away and put into action. Thank you very much.
James, thank you very much for that. That was fascinating. I've written down 5 things I'm taking away from that. So fantastic stuff. Right, here's a look then at the rest of today's agenda. Please keep your questions coming in via the Zoom Q&A interface. They are coming in thick and fast, so thank you for those. Now, let me introduce you to our next speaker, Aurélie Lamy. She works internationally with world-class athletes and captains of industry, enabling them to find their perfect mental flow and optimize their overall performance. She is the founder of the CAREFORMANCE group and is consultant cerebral trainer to ROKiT Venturi Racing. Before we hear from Aurélie, though, let's have a look at the work she's involved in.
Formula E is definitely a team sport. You don't win a race, only the drivers.
There's around 26 of us at Venturi. Everybody has their role to play and everyone has to do a very good job in order for us to be successful.
There is a very, very good atmosphere within the team, and it feels more like a family.
Well done, Felipe. Stay focused.
We are a small but fiercely competitive team.
Since I arrived, it's unbelievable to see how much the team grows in terms of on the professional side, in terms of on the working side.
We love to go racing. We're all very passionate about what we do, and we all absolutely believe that together we can achieve success.
Great stuff. Well, let's hear from Aurélie now. Aurélie, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you today. Thanks, Rachel, for this introduction. So I'm a cerebral trainer for high-level potential, specialized on racing driver, and very happy and proud to be consultant for the ROKiT Venturi Racing. Today, my goal is, if I have just one goal, I would love to make you understand easily how your brain is working and how you can train by yourself very easily. I would love to share with you very practical things you can use straight away after this webinar. And the first thing I want to share with you, if we can switch on the next slide, please, because it doesn't work on my side. Let me see. Thank you. Is that, so the first thing, a basic thing actually, is that we are all identical. Why? Because if we can switch on the next slide, please, thank you. Because heart gives you the direction, brain gives you the solution, and body gives you the realization. In fact, if we can switch again, in fact, the first thing you should know about your brain is that indeed we have three brains. The first brain we developed is the vegetative brain. It's the brain of your body, basically. It's the brain of your sensation, temperature, heaviness, heartbeat. It's all about sensation. It's your vegetative brain. The second brain we developed is the limbic brain. We developed this brain when we settled, and it's the brain of your emotion, joy, anger, guilt, sadness. It's this brain. The last brain we developed is the cortex brain. James talked about it just previously. It's the brain of the calculation, analysis, strategy. It's the brain of your thought and the brain of your mind. So we have three brains, if we can switch. And the second thing you should know about your brain is that they're all connected. It means that everything that happened positively in one of your brain will impact positively your two other brains. Let's have an example. We all have the same positive thought once per week. I hope for you actually, but I have it. It's Friday. And tonight it's weekend. You'll see that during this thought, these positive thoughts, so in your mind, will impact you in your body. You will feel more relaxed on Friday than on Monday. And you will see like your colleagues and your neighbors, even your children, they seem to be more friendly because it impacts positively your three brains. Can we switch? Thank you. But it happens again, it happens also, it also works the other way. It means that everything that happened negatively in one of your brain, let's say, for example, a chronic pain, you have a chronic pain in your body. If it lasts too long, it will, you're gonna start feeling a little bit depressed, for example, and you're gonna start have negative thoughts like it will never end, I will never recover, it will last forever, and you're gonna have a negative circle. Can we switch? Sorry, because my remote control doesn't work. That's why. So basically, the first power you have, and you should know that you have it, is that you can contaminate yourself positively or negatively. You really have this power, especially with your minds. Really be careful with your minds, because when life gets challenging, we can start having negative thoughts, and it's going to impact your two other brains. So really watch your thoughts and know that you have the power. You have three doors to impact yourself positively. Then we can switch. So this is the first part. Second part, we are the same, we are identical, but we are also very different. Why? Because, can we switch? Because we have three brains, okay, but we all have brain predominances. It means that naturally you have one big brain, one medium brain, and a smaller one. If your biggest brain is the body one, the one of the vegetative brain, you are what I call an instinctive person. If your biggest brain is the limbic one, the one of your emotion, you're what I call an affective person. And if your biggest brain is the cerebral one, you are what I call a cerebral person. In this case, for example, we have an affective cerebral person. No, just before. we can come back. We have, in this case, an affective and cerebral person. It means that her biggest brain is the affective one. So that's the brain that's gonna impact this person the most. Then we have the medium brain, which is the cerebral one. And then the smallest one, so the body one, is the weakness. So it's really important for you to find out what are your two predominances and to know what is your weakness, your smallest brain, because it's where we need to work to regulate yourself. So let's find out. I'm going to introduce you a little presentation of the quality, capabilities, can we switch? And limits, because the three predominances have capabilities, gonna give you natural capabilities, but also natural limits. When you are an instinctive person, you have natural capabilities such as you are very factual, you have a stable mood, you are very calm in appearance, you are instinctive person, are very good follower. You're not that much subject to stress because you are right here, right now. You are all sensations. So you're not in the future thinking about a stressful thing, and you're not in the past, you're here. But you also have limits, natural limits. You have difficulties to plan and anticipate things because it's all about future. You can have a lack of ambition and motivation. Even it happens even for high-level sportsmen, really, because ambition and motivation, it's all about how I can see myself in the future. Sometimes you seem not to care because you're very factual. So as soon as we don't speak to you with fact, you don't care. You're not very good listener because of that, and you can be rude sometimes in communication. When your biggest predominance is the affective one, you're an affective person. Your capabilities naturally are you are sociable, empathic, creative, because creativity, it's all about emotion. You can be a really positive leader. It means that you can impact positively a team. People like to follow you because you have a lot of enthusiasm. You care about the well-being of people around you so much sometimes, too much sometimes, and you always want to improve. Your limits, you can be really stressed. Actually, you have the predominance that is the most impacted by the stress. You can be really anxious when life is getting challenging. You are irregular most of the times. It's really difficult for you to be consistent because performances will follow your emotion. You can also be a negative, you can have a very negative impact on a team when you are in a bad state, in an emotional bad state. You are willing to forget yourself very easily because it takes you too much time to think about people around you. You can have a lack of confidence, you can doubt easily, and you are too focused on people's judgment. When your biggest predominance is the cerebral one, when you are a cerebral person, your capabilities are you are a good analyst, you like to go into details, you have a very good anticipation, you are very good at strategy, you are very consistent and prudent, you know how to be safe, to secure things. Your limits, you can be really nervous. You seem to be really cold because you always put distance in between you and other people. It's the distance of analyzing. You can be not empathic because sometimes you don't understand emotion. You can be too safe, too prudent, not enough spontaneous. It's kind of difficult for you in your limit to decide something right here, right now, because we need to go quickly. It's hard for you because you need time to analyze. And you're not enough connected to people because you put a lot of analyzing in between you and people, as I said. So let's switch. If I go further, if we can switch the slide. Instinctive person. I mean, I put things in boxes, but you have to make your own mix. Of course, we are not 100% this and 0% that, so make your own mix. Just found out which one is your biggest predominance. So instinctive person, or what I call the good soldier, they have a sentence like, when I close the door, everything that's behind stays behind. I mean, I I can't say that because for me, it's not like that. I always have my bag with all my problem on it. They need to feel comfortable, to have habits, regularity. We can find them as in manual trade, for example, but we're going to find them in every kind of job as soon as they are a follower, not leader. Affective person, or what I call the good friend, you will recognize them very easily because they always put a lot of emotion in their word. I love this and I hate that. I can't stand to see someone sad. I always need to help. So this is an affective person. They don't have the same need, and they don't have actually the same way of to communicate all those predominances. They need to love and to be loved, even at work. An affective person put love everywhere. To be recognized more than to be well paid. Actually, both are very nice, but to be recognized, it's very important for an affective person. And to find the true meaning of everything. We're gonna find them in the kind of work they like to do: sales representative, CEO, communication, cerebral trainer, artist, and so on. And then the biggest predominant cerebral person are what I call the good students. They always have sentences with I think that, yes, but what if, I don't understand. They need to understand, to know every details, to control and check. When a cerebral person doesn't manage this, it can be a really control freak. And when you want to control, you can't adapt. It's not the same thing. As Jen said, you need to accept things the way they are sometimes. And you're gonna find them as engineers, bankers, scientists. So it's very interesting because it's quite well balanced. My job and your job should be to find the good balance on yourself, because as I said, your predominance, when context is good, you will always enjoy what you are. You will enjoy your natural capabilities. But when life gets challenging, you're gonna start face your limits, and it's gonna restrain you to express your full potential. How can you express your full potential? How can you improve? To improve, you really do need to understand that when life gets challenging, your two predominances will overflow and you're gonna face your limits. To regulate this, you need to train your smallest brain, the one you don't use enough, because in this brain, you will find all the capabilities you need to regulate yourself. So this is the first part of the job. In this example, we have an affective cerebral person, and to regulate the two brains, because they are connected, we just need to work positively on the smallest brain, which is the body one. And we have another example. Can we switch? Yeah, here we have another example. Here we have an instinctive cerebral person. So the two brains we need to regulate are the body and the mind. And to train this, to express, to improve the potential, we need to work positively on the emotional brain, on the emotion. Get it? It was a question, but you can't answer. We're gonna try an exercise just to experience this. Can we switch? I'm gonna ask you to try something. I mean, you're not obliged because you're behind the screen, but if you want, let's try something. I'm gonna ask you, because the context is quite good, right, around you. You have a nice temperature, you are comfortable, the context is safe. So I'm gonna, and because Jen said that maybe we don't sleep that much, not enough, we're gonna try to rest, and we're gonna try we're gonna see if it's possible. So I'm gonna ask you to sit down and take your time to feel comfortable. Then we're gonna try, and I'm gonna do it with you, we're gonna try to close our eyes and just to rest. We're gonna just try this. Okay, you do this with me? Okay, I'm gonna let you a few minutes. I don't know, I'm gonna tell you. So sit down properly, do it with you. Let's close our eyes. And let's just try to rest without changing our breathing, without trying to do something else. Just try to rest a little bit. Okay, you can open your eyes now. And I'm gonna ask you 2 questions. Can we have the first one, please? Okay. How many thoughts did you have during this experience? Okay, you see that most of you in, I don't know, less than a minute, you had like in between 1 and 5 thoughts. It means that most of you, when you want to rest, you can't because you have your cortex brain, the one of your thought, that not allows you to do that, okay? But it's your brain, you should be able to do whatever you want with your brain. Okay, now let's have another question, quick one. Do you feel more nervous? It happens. The same as before or more relaxed? It's just to see if you, okay, quite easy. I'm gonna share it. So you feel more relaxed at 59%, or you were only 18% saying that you didn't have any thoughts, okay? The same as before and more nervous. Yeah, it happened because closing your eyes is gonna increase your thoughts and that's gonna make you feel more nervous. So let's try something else. We're gonna see if we can do something to have better results. Okay, we're gonna sit down again, and for this one, I'm gonna ask you to, we're gonna do the same thing, but another way. I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes and to welcome all the thoughts you have. You know why? Because when you want to sleep, if you try not to think, you will increase your thoughts. If you welcome your thoughts, you'll see that you will have less thoughts than if you try not to think. So we're gonna welcome all our thoughts, and we're gonna try to see it, to picture it, to see pictures, to see words. I don't know, me, I'm visualizing that I have TV screen and I put all my thoughts on the TV screen. Just try to do this. If you don't see anything, it's okay. Just remember remember the process. We're gonna try to visualize our thought in front of us. Then we're gonna leave our thoughts where they are, and we're gonna try to come back into our breathing. Actually, it's not a breathing exercise at all. We're gonna focus on the sensation of temperature in our nose when we breathe. It means that we're gonna try to feel the cold when we inhale and warmer when we exhale. And we're gonna focus on this. Let's try this. Then we're gonna follow the path of our breathing and we're gonna see if it's better for us or not. Let's try this all together. Okay, let's sit down again. If it makes you too nervous, this kind of exercises, you can also do it with eyes open. Let's sit down properly, and then let's take our time to sit down right here, right now. And then whenever we're ready, we can close our eyes and do it with you. Let's try this. And then we're gonna welcome all the thought we have right now. Let's welcome it. Thought about work, thought about what we said just before, thought about the empty fridge, what we're gonna do this week, and let's welcome all the thought you have, even silly ones. And try to see it in front of you, like you can see movies on TV screen, or you see pictures, words, whatever. Try to visualize your thoughts in front of you. If you don't see anything, it's okay. Then, when you see it, when you welcome it, don't feel it, just look at it. You're watching your thoughts. They are not into your head, they are in front of you. And then you can come back into your nose. And we're gonna put all our attention into our breathing, but especially in the difference of temperature in our nose when we breathe. Let's try to feel the air a little bit cold when we inhale, a little bit warm when we exhale. And if we don't feel any difference, just put your attention on the air coming in and coming out your nose. But all your attention is in your nose. And if you have any thought coming back, welcome it, look at it, and come back to your nose. In and out, cold and warm. All your attention is in your nose, very focused, and you feel the air coming in and coming out. Then we can follow the path of our breathing from our nose, our throat, our chest, our belly, like a wave from our nose to our belly, regular and calm. And whenever you're ready, you can just open your eyes. You can stretch a little bit. So if you're more nervous doing this, try to train eyes open. So you see that what we've just done is we put our attention, we trained our body to regulate our minds. We trained our body because just doing this, just putting focus in one sensation in your body, whatever the one you choose, is gonna train your body and regulate your emotion and your minds if you are an affective cerebral affective person. Okay, so now can we switch the slide? Because you saw that it's not that easy. It's not that easy to improve ourselves. So how can you do this? Because the question now is, do I need a cerebral trainer? Of course you do. I'm joking. You can really improve by yourself. You just need to understand the way you work, and it's quite easy. And the way to change, how you can change. Can we switch? To change, you just need to know that training your brain, it's like a sport. Why? Can we switch? Because you have to understand that capabilities in your brain, doing something even as easy as we've just done, like focus in one sensation and stay focused on this, it's like new things to you. And your brain is a muscle. And to train it, you just need, to train your brain, it's like creating many roads to make you adapt yourself easier to life. It's, if I take an example, it's like you're here and you want to go to Paris and there's just one road to go there. This is your goal. The goal is Paris, but there's just one road to go there. But if something happened to this road, you can't go because there's just one road in your brain. But if you've created many roads to go to Paris, you can still go to Paris, but you just need to change the road you wanted to take first. It's the same in your brain. And to create channel in your brain, to create one channel, if you want to improve yourself, you will need to dig a new channel in your brain, to dig a road 30 times, to train yourself 30 times to make a correct channel. Can we switch? And the 31st time you're gonna dig this channel, it's gonna cost you energy. But at the end, when you keep repeating this behavior or this capability or this new habit, it's going to become a reflex. And reflex doesn't cost you energy, right? It's like, would you say that brushing your teeth costs you energy? Not at all, because brushing your teeth every day, it's a habit. It doesn't cost you energy. But if you have children, you remember that it costs you energy, you and your children, to make them brush their teeth. So can we switch? if you want to improve yourself, if you want to unlock the capabilities you have in your smallest brain, you need to change and to work smarter. You need to change your old habits in a new behavior. And it's even more exhausting. Why? Because in your brain, it's like holding back the water of your first habit not to flow into the deepest channel while you're digging a new channel with your other hand. It's even more exhausting. So change is difficult. We all know we should change things, but most of the time we fail. We fail when we want to change because we are minimizing how it costs to our brain to change. So here is my method. I'm going to share it with you. Can we switch? Thank you. Here's my method. To succeed in your improvement, make a list of all the things you should change in your life, all the things you should stop, and all the things you should start. Make a list, because we all have a list. If in this list you have things linked into your smallest brain, it's even better. So make a list. Wait to have enough energy, because if you want to adapt yourself to a new pandemic, you will have to train your brain, and to train your brain, you need energy. And most of the time, when we want to change ourselves, it's especially when everything is going wrong in our life. But when everything is going wrong in your life, you don't have enough energy to train yourself. So do the opposite. Wait to be on holidays. Wait to be in a good context to change, to train your life, to train your brain, because it's at that moment that you have enough energy to do it. Because it's like digging. Remember, just pick one change, because you can't dig many channels at the same time. Repeat it 30 times at least. Repeat it 30 times, this new habit, this new behavior, and keep going on this one. Enjoy the benefit, and start again from your list, and pick another change and do it again the same way. So it's really, to conclude, it's really worth it to work on yourself, because it will increase both your well-being and performance. One training, two benefits. One last advice: if one of your two predominances is the cortex one, the one of your mind, as our society won't help you to regulate this brain. Why? Because we are full of data. We are full of a lot of technologies everywhere all the time. We now have watches to tell us when to sleep, when to breathe, maybe one day they will tell us when to make love. But data won't never replace your sensation. And if you want a proof of it, I don't know if it happens to you, but it happens to me. When you analyze that you have everything in your life to be happy, I have the house, I have the husband, I have this and I have that, but I don't feel it. But you can analyze whatever you want. If you don't feel it, it doesn't exist. So watch out your sensation, and don't let the data and don't let the technology replace your sensation. I'm going to conclude with this. So work harder on yourself, to work smarter at your office, to feel better in your life. Let's rock it. Thank you, everybody. And if you have any question, please use the Q&A. Yeah, it was, or you can also ask me question in my Instagram account. I will answer to you with pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Aurélie. Fascinating. I feel more relaxed, and that was intriguing stuff. Thank you very, very much for that. Right, we've got one more session, the Q&A session. So if I could invite Gaidar and James to join us once more, and we have questions coming in for you already. Gaidar, the first one is for you, and it says, in a few days, it will be formalized, the ISO 15118, that will define the way electric cars will be authenticated and charged for the energy they pull from the grids. If you think about MAC address, the same will happen for e-cars. Every car will have its unique OEM, like MAC address. We, for instance, supply wireless charge for EV. Here also, there could be room for hackers. Is this a business that you're considering protecting?
So yes, in this scenario, when we have electric cars being identified by the power outlets, there are a few
options on how the hackers can exploit it. So one obvious way is to pretend that you have a different car so you can charge for free. But the other way is actually use any kind of connection to install some malicious software. It will depend on the car and depend on the manufacturers, but anytime you have any kind of a connection to anything, you can experience some really challenging cybersecurity situations. So the way to address it, I would say we actually have the solution that can be used for that. We have Acronis Notary that is based on the blockchain and can record all the transactions and all the addresses of all the power outlets and all the cars that can be used to track authenticity of the device. And that way you can also limit the connections only to the authorized power outlets. That way you probably will not experience unauthorized connections. And the other thing that should be done is definitely for every type of device, and the car is just a very sophisticated device, but at the end of the day, it's a computer. It should have installed cyber protection on it, because if you have any kind of computer, you have any kind of software, it can be attacked. It can be attacked with a virus, it can be attacked with a ransomware. So that's what we would definitely recommend there. We are not looking specifically in that particular scenario, but the idea is very interesting. So I will talk to product team on what we can do here.
Great,
thank you for the question.
Thank you. James, a lot of people sending questions in asking about sleep. And we were going to talk to you about whether or not people can cope with less than 7 hours, but this one specifically has come in. And it said, normally people sleep 7 to 8 hours. I feel tired and I hate my mornings. I need at least 10 hours. Why does this happen? And how can I change my behaviors or habits?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's several possibilities there. And so I can't, my disclaimer is I can't diagnose anything remotely or in person. But I mean, based on the scientific evidence, I'd suggest that there's two main possibilities for that. I mean, one is simply that you need more sleep. You know, some people do need more than 7 hours, 9, even 10 hours. The other possibility is that the quality of your sleep is poor, or the efficiency of your sleep is poor relative to the amount of time that you're spending in bed. And so it could be that you're waking up in the night, or you're almost waking up several times. You're not going through these natural sleep cycles that you need to go through, these kind of 90-minute blocks where we cycle between this deep sleep and then there's what we call this REM sleep. And so I'd really encourage you to maybe have a look at the recording, look at those 10 tips that I shared earlier, and try and just address what we call sleep hygiene. So the basic things that you could do to try and make that environment dark, ensure that it's good temperature, about 18 degrees centigrade, make sure you're not wearing clothing that will make you overheat. Also, definitely think about caffeine and alcohol. If you do consume caffeine and alcohol, do an experiment, maybe try and avoid caffeine and alcohol for a period of time if you are using it, see whether that improves the situation. So try and eliminate all those things that might be disrupting your sleep, and then see whether that makes you feel more alert and more refreshed when you wake up, even if you get 10 hours. If that doesn't work, then I definitely encourage you to go and look for some other input to maybe investigate why that could be. But I definitely start with those basic sleep hygiene tips, as we call them.
Just following on from that, actually, David said, what are your thoughts on the impact of having to get up a couple of times during the night? Do you think you then need to sleep for longer? So instead of the 7 hours with getting up twice, do you need 7.5 or 8 hours?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. I mean, so as I mentioned, during sleep, we sleep in these 90-minute phases, or about 90 minutes, where each 90 minutes we cycle between deep sleep and REM sleep, this rapid eye movement sleep. And so over the night, we need to get a good proportion of deep sleep and then rapid eye movement sleep. The challenge that we have is that actually the amount of deep sleep to rapid eye movement sleep, the proportions during those 90-minute cycles actually change during the course of the night. And so ideally what you need is a continuous period of sleep so that you get the right proportions of deep sleep, non-REM sleep to REM sleep. So if your sleep is disrupted, it basically does negatively impact that kind of a journey that your brain goes through over the course of the night. That journey is disrupted, and it means that you probably wake up feeling less refreshed, which might be the case as in the previous question. So you probably will end up needing a bit more sleep because the sleep was less efficient if you had to get up a couple of times. And having 2 young kids myself, I certainly know what that feels like. And shift workers and people with puppies and whatever probably know as well. But so if you can, try to avoid getting woken up. But I recognise that's not always possible. So unfortunately, when that happens, we just have to try and deal with it and probably drink a bit more coffee, but stop as early as you can.
Great, thank you. Aurélie, this one is for you. We're bombarded with information all day. Most of it we can't actually read in a day, or if we read it, we definitely can't process it. Shouldn't we just go far away from all of it in order to be able to change things somewhere where the narratives of every day just stop, including trying to reform or train the functions of our brain? What do you think? I think that's really relative right now as well. We're being sent so much information. Do you think we need to step away from it? You just need you to unmute your microphone. Sorry, your microphone's muted. Thank you.
Sorry. It's a very good question, and there's a lot of answer, because the thing is, how can I say that? There's what we call in your brain the attentional focal. James talked a little bit about it. Your attentional focus will see things in details when you are in a negative emotion. When you get anxious, you will have the impression to be lost into all your thoughts, all the things around you. You're going to see things into details. Okay, it's an archaic reflex. And when you are in a positive emotion, you see things wide. So it's really important. I'm working this, for example, a lot with drivers, because you can't afford to see things into details, but it will increase your impression that there's a lot of information, because the more you see things into details, the more you have the impression to be invited by a lot of information. So my advice is this one, to regulate this, because if you say this, it's probably because you are a cerebral and affective person, or an affective and cerebral person. It means that your emotion will increase your thought, and your thought will increase your emotion. All the benefits you can have are in your body. Do something to go down into your sensation, to calm down. For example, and you don't need to change your life. I'm going to give you just one simple exercise you can do to regulate yourself and to slow down. Actually, 2 exercises. The first one is try to walk very slowly. Try to regulate the way you walk, because that way you're going to feel that you walk, and you're going to activate your vegetative brain, and it will slow down your thoughts. Do the exercise we have done. Don't remember that even if it was difficult to do, the more difficult it is, and the more you should train it, because remember, we don't do something to have benefits straight away. You need to dig a channel in your brain, and if it's difficult for you, it means that it's your smallest brain. So exercise yourself doing this, slow down your walk, do the exercise we just have done. And one last advice, please, if you're in this case, be underneath your shower when you shower. You'll see that when you're an affective cerebral person, when you having your shower, you're not into your shower. You are sending email, you are doing things, you are doing a lot of things, but you're not into your shower. It means that all the moment we have in our sensation every day, we are missing it, because our thoughts are always in the future. That's how we are losing our sensation benefits. And that's how we have the impression that everything is going fast and there's a lot of things. No, there's not a lot of things. Of course, there's a lot of things, but we can slow down, be underneath your shower. You don't have to change your whole life. Just train yourself 30 times, be underneath your shower, and you will know that you will see that you will be able then to enjoy time with your family without thinking about a lot of other things. So that's my answer. It was long, sorry, but I profit to say a lot of things.
Oh, I love it. And I'm going to take that with me. You're so right. You're so right. You never actually have the shower. Your mind is always elsewhere. Gaidar, if I can ask you this one, what helps you de-stress in your job? How do you deal with the stress of your job, and what do you do to switch off?
Oh, interesting. Unexpected question, though. So yeah, I do a few things. So one thing that really helps is ability to switch to some other type of activity. So I prefer the activities that really requires me to be into that particular activity. So I'm flying small planes, I'm a pilot, and I'm also shooting in practical shooting competition. So all of those activities require you to be really into that, otherwise you die. And that really helps to switch from like thinking about day-to-day business, but also, and I would say that Aurélie gave great advice, is sometimes just slowing down helps. Sometimes you're so overwhelmed, so many things coming in. So right now I received about 240 emails in just the last 2 hours. And I can tell you that it sometimes adds a lot of pressure on you, and sometimes you just have to breathe in, breathe out, and think, okay, I'll slow down a little bit, I'll process it, and I'll be able to deal with it. So no magical tricks, but this helps.
Great, thank you very much. James, this one's for you. I know a lot of us in the evening reach for a glass of wine or a drink just because we think it relaxes us, but does it, and does it help us sleep?
Yeah, that's a really common question, and I'm afraid that the news is not good for those of us who like drink an alcoholic drink in the evening. So that alcohol does reduce what's called sleep latency. So when you drink alcohol in the evening, it actually reduces the time that it takes to get to sleep. The other thing that it does is it actually increases the amount of deep sleep during the first part of the night. So as I mentioned, you get different proportions of this deep non-REM sleep and this rapid eye movement sleep, depending on the phase of the night that it is. So when you drink alcohol, you get to sleep quickly, you have more of this deep sleep at the beginning. And so that often leads us to think that alcohol is a sleep aid, that it actually helps with our sleep. The problem is that that deep sleep that you get during the first part of the night actually comes at the cost of more disrupted sleep later on. And in particular, it really stops us getting that kind of REM sleep that we need, where the brain is doing some really important work during that rapid eye movement sleep. So while sometimes we think that alcohol helps, unfortunately, it doesn't. Actually, what we end up doing is disrupting our sleep more and often setting one of those vicious cycles off again. Now, there's a dose-response relationship. So that means the more you drink, the more your sleep will be disrupted. And also, it's worth bearing in mind that people metabolize alcohol at different rates. So my advice is really simple. If you're going to drink alcohol, try to drink less, but whatever the case, start as early as possible. So I'm not necessarily advocating drinking at breakfast, but if I was purely talking about influencing your sleep, then you'd be less likely to interfere with your sleep if you had a Bloody Mary at the breakfast table than if you had a whiskey in the evening. But the evidence is quite clear, unfortunately. While I certainly do enjoy a glass of wine or a beer in the evening, it's certainly not doing anything beneficial for my sleep, unfortunately.
Great, thank you very much, James. Unfortunately, thank you very much. Aurélie, if I could ask you, the practice of relaxation you demonstrated with us a little while ago, is it better to perform it individually, kind of in an isolated space where you can be quiet, or do you recommend you do it in a group?
Okay, I like this question because most of the time people think that, and it's really important to know for your well-being and your performance, you know that I will tell you that later on, that we always think that we should have a very comfortable context to be happy, to feel well, to feel performance. We should wait to be on holidays to be happy, and we should every racing driver should wait to everything to be perfect to perform. But this is not the way it is, and if you wait that, you are not responsible of your happiness and you're not responsible of your performances. So of course it's harder to train yourself and to develop your own capabilities. But when you develop your own capabilities, remember you have a lot of road to go to reach the goal, which is your goal, a goal of well-being, of performance. You have many roads and you are responsible of your performance or your well-being. So of course it will be easier to put a very nice song and a nice smell and to lay down and everything perfect, and you're gonna relax. But it's not because of you, it's because of the context. So if you really want to train yourself, you know, because I'm working especially with racing driver, I mean, nothing is relaxing when you're in a pit lane. Nothing is relaxing, but they know how to train. They know how to calm down because they are responsible of these capabilities. So my answer is Don't wait for the context to be happy and performance. Of course, it will be easier to train alone, but if you really want to change, challenge yourself and train even if the context is challenging around you. That's how you develop your capabilities, and then you will be able to do it, whatever is the context. So easier, it's not always good for you.
Perfect. And I imagine the more you do it, the better and the easier it is when it's a busy environment for you to be able to do it. Wonderful. To all of you, thank you so much for your answers today, and to everyone who's sent questions in. Really, really appreciate your time today. I'd like to just point out some upcoming events as well to you. On August the 5th, we've got a fascinating session on the topic, what science says about why we sleep and how to rest your way to success. I will definitely be tuning in for that one. And then on August the 19th, we've got another one for you. We'll be looking at how office workers can reduce stress and improve mental health. You can find more information on the website acronis.events. Feel free to join our Acronis Global Cyber Summit in October from anywhere on any device, and it is free of charge. You can register to the Global Cyber Summit on acronis.events/summit 2020. It's going to be great, and we continue this virtual world, don't we? So make sure you join us for that. But also, if you're so inclined, we'd very much appreciate a donation to the Acronis Cyber Foundation Emergency Relief. It's a chance to build and support schools in developing countries around the world. It's very, very close to our hearts at Acronis, and it's something we're involving our partners in more and more. If you can find your way to helping us with that, that would be fantastic. Now, we'll be sending you an email link of the recording of the event shortly. Hopefully, we've shed some light on the notion that staying cyber fit is more than just protecting data and staying safe from cyber security threats. It's also taking a holistic approach to your fitness and not overlooking your physical and mental health as well. Some fabulous tips today. I hope you've got a lot from it. Thank you for your time and attention. It's been great to see everybody. Please be safe, be well, and be secure. Thank you very much.